Translator. Editor Henyi. Peng, the earth suddenly split apart like a torn battlefield, and from the shattered ground burst forth a gigantic lion-shaped beast. Its monstrous body stretched 30 meters long and rose 15 meters tall. Black scales covered its entire frame, overlapping like the armored plates of a pangolin and glimmering with a sinister luster. Yet its tail was entirely different. The tail was long and flexible, and its tip resembled a corncob, from which drifted a faint fragrance like that of an incomparably precious medicinal herb. What startled everyone even more was that the tail looked extremely familiar. Why did it resemble that spirit medicine so closely? Ling Han's expression changed drastically. That thing earlier had not been some rare treasure at all, but the bait deliberately extended by this beast. It had intentionally altered its tail little by little, making it appear like a spirit medicine slowly ripening with time. In this way, it gathered the greatest possible number of prey before devouring them in one single strike. This also explained why the shattering Void Tier elites who had passed by earlier had paid no attention to the so-called precious medicine. They had never even seen it. This was an existence of the shattering Void Tier. Within this place, it was utterly invincible. The 7 Heaven Tier elites immediately stopped fighting. After witnessing this scene, they obviously realized the truth. Yet, now that they had become prey targeted by a shattering Void Tier beast, could they possibly escape? Ang! The beast released a thunderous roar. Hong! The sound waves surged like a raging tsunami. Peng! 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 Everything within several li shattered instantly into fragments. The 7 Heaven Tier elites bore the brunt of the attack. Their skin split open, their bones fractured, and barely a single breath of life remained within their bodies. Fortunately, it was precisely because the 7 great Heaven Tier warriors had begun fighting earlier that the others had already retreated far away to avoid the shockwaves of battle, thus escaping immediate catastrophe. Even so, many people had their arms or legs broken, though they had not been pulverized into pieces. The might of a shattering Void Tier creature was unimaginably terrifying. A single strike possessed the power to smash the stars themselves. Luckily, Ling Han and the others had retreated even farther away. They were almost unaffected, though the terrifying aura of the shattering Void Tier beast still pressed down on them, turning their faces pale and making it difficult even to breathe. Everyone's expressions changed drastically. How were they supposed to resist this? A shattering Void Tier beast had set its sights upon them as prey. Run! Almost instantly, everyone scattered in all directions. The beast also began to move. With a single pull, it swallowed all 7 Heaven Tier elites into its mouth. Crunch, crunch. It chewed several times before swallowing them down into its stomach. Then it began a ruthless massacre. Though everyone fled in different directions, the speed of a shattering Void Tier creature was frighteningly fast. After devouring all the prey in the east, south, and west, the group fleeing north had only managed to run a little more than 100 li. Among them were Ling Han's group. Rain Emperor and Mu Rongqing were also with them. In addition, there were peerless geniuses such as Yao Huiyue and Jia Ming. They had coincidentally chosen the same direction because fleeing this way meant they were most likely to encounter reinforcements. Ling Han secretly sighed in admiration. Trying to compete in speed with a shattering Void Tier creature was nothing but a fantasy. At best, he could only rely on the Black Tower to protect those he cared about. At worst, there would be some people whom he would temporarily not release again. The gold-seeking rat had been frightened so badly that it once again feigned death, lying stiff and straight with its tail rigidly raised. Hu Nu picked it up happily and said, "The rat's dead. Can we eat it?" The moment those words were spoken, the gold-seeking rat immediately sprang back to life. Why does this little girl always want to eat this baby? It squeaked angrily in rat language. The rabbit felt the pain deeply. While running, it shouted, "Now you finally know Uncle Rabbit's suffering, right? Stop the nonsense and run for your lives." Ling Han snapped. What kind of clowns had gathered around him? Even in a life-and-death situation like this, they still refused to behave properly. Whose fault was it, if not the rabbit's? Hu Nu's speed was far too fast. Even if she wasn't so fast that space itself bent beneath her feet, in such a desperate moment, it was enough that she was simply faster than others. At the very least, she would survive longer that way. Kakaka, such a mighty lion beast. It is perfect to become this king's mount. At that moment, a sweet peal of laughter rang through the sky. A girl in a purple dress suddenly appeared. No one had seen how she arrived. It was as though she had simply always been standing there. This girl was beautiful, like blooming peaches and plums. Standing in the air, the gentle breeze lifted the hem of her long dress. Her bare, jade-like feet added an air of natural elegance. Divine clouds swirled around her body, making her appear like a celestial maiden descending into the mortal world. Aang! The beast suddenly halted, staring vigilantly at the girl. Flames puffed from its nostrils as if its lungs were filled with blazing fire. Clearly, it feared her greatly. To make a shattering void-tier beast feel fear, there was no need to question it. This girl was certainly also a shattering void-tier elite. Yao Huiyue and Jia Ming, the proud disciples of the five great sects, had naturally seen the shattering void-tier elders within their own sects and others. Yet none of them could compare to the girl before their eyes. How strange. She was clearly a shattering void-tier elite, yet she had not appeared earlier as if out of thin air. Ling Han, however, felt relieved. This girl was the Lunar King. Little kitty, be a good mount for this king. The Lunar King made her move and attacked the beast lion. Their battle shook the heavens and the earth. Everyone fled even farther away, for any single aftershock could have killed them 100 times over if it struck directly. In the distance, a group of 100 people advanced rapidly. Their formation was astonishingly orderly. They resembled an army. 10 people stood in each row, forming a perfectly square array. Each person held a long spear with solemn expression, exuding a fierce, iron-blooded aura. Every one of them possessed cultivation at the deity transformation tier, which was extremely shocking. Deity transformation tier warriors were considered experts anywhere, yet this 100-man unit appeared to be someone's personal army. At the front row stood a banner bearer, holding a flag painted with a slender hand, lifting a waning moon. They halted in front of the battlefield, far closer than Ling Han and the others were to the clash between the Lunar King and the Beast Lion. When the shock waves swept toward them, they thrust their spears forward together. The power of 100 warriors miraculously fused into one, forming battle prowess off the heaven tier and completely dissolving the aftershocks. Everyone starred in utter shock. 100 deity transformation tier warriors could rival a heaven tier light? It was like witnessing a dream. Ling Han immediately understood that this must be the Lunar King's personal army. Only the Purple Moon Empire, an ancient force buried countless years ago, possessed such miraculous formations capable of gathering the power of many into one. The Lunar King was truly far too powerful. Her slender hands seemed forged from divine materials. With a casual slap, the beast lion was sent tumbling over and over through the air. No matter how terrifying the attacks the beast unleashed, she dealt with them effortlessly. Her demeanor relaxed and carefree. From her body, Ling Han sensed an aura similar to that of the Sword King and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. Absolute strength, the sovereign among sovereigns. In a very short time, the beast lion had been subdued by the Lunar King, pressed down upon the ground with its tongue hanging out. It struggled with all its strength, yet everything it did was futile. The Lunar King half sat and half reclined atop the beast lion's back in a posture both elegant and seductive. She beckoned toward Ling Han and said, "Little handsome boy, come massage this king's legs!" She stretched out her long legs, and beneath the dress, a snow-white, smooth thigh was revealed, stirring turmoil within one's heart. Translator, Revitor, Henyi. Quite a number of people felt their hearts churn with envy, some even on the verge of madness. This woman was not only a peerless beauty beneath the heavens, but also possessed the pinnacle strength of humanity, capable of suppressing even that ferocious beast lion. If one could possess such a remarkable beauty, what more could one possibly desire in this life? Even though the others burned with envy and jealousy, none dared voice a word of it, not even daring to gasp loudly. That was a shattering void-tier supreme expert, and only she possessed the right to toy with others. Little brother, charge forward with courage. Capture our king. Men must have a heroic spirit, too. Yet the rigid soldiers standing in square formation stunned everyone when they suddenly began to whistle and cheer. Ling Han on with loud encouragement. At this moment, these people no longer resembled disciplined soldiers of an army. but rather a gathering of unruly bandits. Ling Han was completely speechless. Just who exactly were these fellows? The Lunar King feigned displeasure and said, "You bunch of scoundrels, are you trying to rebel? We wouldn't dare. It's just that our king isn't young anymore, and it's about time she found a man to marry. We aren't worthy of our king, so we can only request an outsider." Hey, I think this little brother looks quite good. Handsome, refined, unexpectedly talented, and most importantly, someone who can make our king flirt is truly rare to find. The seasoned veterans all shouted out playfully, every one of them extremely excited. Not letting you take news, Ling Han. Who knew instantly became vigilant. She dashed forward and stood before Ling Han, glaring fiercely at the 100 veterans like a tiny, ferocious tiger. The veterans burst into loud laughter. Having survived hundreds of battles, they naturally weren't afraid of Hu New's fierce little glare. "Ayo, our king has encountered a rival. A love triangle, how troublesome." They immediately stirred up even more commotion. The Lunar King also laughed heartily. Sitting astride the beast lion, she said, "Men, follow this king. This land is of great importance and must not fall into the hands of others." "Yes, my king." The veterans instantly grew solemn. They stood straight in perfect formation and responded in unison. Raising their long spears high, they released an aura filled with boundless killing intent. This formation of 100 warriors was terrifying beyond words. If they fought individually, Ling Han was confident he could defeat every one of them. But against their combined battle array, he would undoubtedly be defeated. 100 people forming a formation capable of raising their battle strength to the heaven tier. This was an incomparably terrifying matter. No one dared breathe loudly under the pressure of this army. Their spirits trembled as if they could see the endless rivers of blood and mountains of corpses left behind by the countless experts slain by this very force. The Lunar King soared into the heavens atop the beast lion, releasing a divine chain that swept up the 100-man army, carrying them together as they crossed the sea. Brother Ling, could it be that you know that mighty figure?" Wenren Qian asked. The astonishment on her face was impossible to conceal. That woman was a shattering void tier supreme expert. The corner of Ling Han's mouth twitched as he replied, "I suppose I know her." His mood was extremely gloomy. Being teased by an old monster that had been buried beneath the earth for countless years. Seeing Ling Han suddenly grow taciturn, Wenren Qian refrained from asking further. In this great battle, 90% of the forces who had entered had perished. It could truly be called tragic. Only about 100 people remained alive. But without exception, they were all extraordinary prodigies. Otherwise, they would not have been able to keep up with the group and would have long been devoured by the beast lion along the way. "Ling Han?" Jiaming's gaze swept over, and 2 crimson rays shot out from his eyes. An extremely strange sight. "Xuan Yao Huiyue also looked over, his expression filled with uncontrollable excitement. At this moment, Zhu Xuan had already returned to her original breathtaking appearance, which naturally stirred Yao Huiyue's emotions. This was his Zhu Xuan. "Oh, Ling Han?" Another young man walked forward. His appearance seemed utterly ordinary, yet if one observed carefully, they would discover that his gaze was incomparably deep, like an endless ocean. Ling Han shrugged and muttered, "All the monsters and freaks have truly gathered." "Xuan." Yao Huiyue was the first to rush to Zhu Xuan'er's side, staring at her in a daze. Zhu Xuan'er's expression remained calm and indifferent as she said, "Please, Brother Yao, conduct yourself properly and address Xuan'er as Lady Zhu or by Xuan'er's full name." Yao Huiyue abruptly turned his head and looked toward Ling Han, saying, "Ling Han, I want a duel." Ling Han laughed and said, "We fought side by side before. Fighting and killing each other now isn't very good. Well then, I have a little companion here. If you can defeat him, then we can fight." He tossed out the rock spirit. Pa, the golem landed upon the ground and began crawling around Ling Han casually. Its behavior was no different from a pet dog. Yao Huiyue's face filled with fury. Ling Han had actually sent out such a thing to fight him. Just how much did Ling Han look down on him? He drew his sword, pointed it at Ling Han, and declared, "Fight me!" The rock spirit saw this and immediately became enraged. "I'm acting cute here, so Master will remember me from time to time and give me good rocks to eat. Yet you dare point a sword at my master? What do you mean by that? It stood up and opened its mouth wide, roaring fiercely at Yao Huiyue. Hong. The sound waves became visible to the naked eye as they surged toward Yao Huiyue with terrifying force. Now the rock spirit had already advanced to the late stage of the spiritual infant tier. Coupled with its identity as a spirit of the five elements, a king among kings, its strength was terrifyingly formidable. Yao Huiyue's hair scattered wildly, fluttering in the violent gale. He stared at the rock spirit and no longer dared treat it carelessly. Taking a deep breath, his expression turned grave as he realized he had encountered a formidable opponent. Fight in the sky. Ling Han waved his hand dismissively. The rock spirit immediately soared into the heavens. Since it had not yet reached the deity transformation tier, it could not draw power from the earth to strengthen itself anyway. Right? So fighting in the air made no difference to it. Yao Huiyue also rose into the sky and engaged in a fierce battle with the rock spirit. Ling Han did not even spare Jiaming a glance. Instead, he looked at the unfamiliar youth and said, "May I ask what this brother is called?" "Shu Shu Ran," the young man replied indifferently, giving Ling Han a faint smile. His 2 rows of teeth were dazzlingly white, so he was Shu Shu Ran. He appeared extremely ordinary. When the small Saber King appeared, his entire body was surrounded by Saber Chi. But this person was rumored to have already comprehended Saber Heart, or at least half a Saber Heart, yet he looked utterly normal. The difference was truly enormous. Yet Ling Han felt a deep alarm stir within his heart. Was this the return to simplicity, the state of returning to the natural? He stood proudly and said, "You two can come together." He pointed toward Jiaming. "Humph." Jiaming simply turned around to leave and said, "Shu Shu Ran, this brat is for you to handle. I sense that a great fortune awaits me in the sea and have no time to waste on such an insignificant nobody." He paused, then turned to look at Jushuan and Wenren Qianqian, revealing a savage grin. "You will all be mine." Shu, he leapt up and dashed toward the great sea. When he landed, he stepped upon the water's surface and sprang upward again, moving entirely by brute force, yet his speed remained astonishingly fast. Shu Shu Ran stood calmly with his hands behind his back and said, "Ling Han, you killed a disciple of the Absolute Saber Sect. As the future sect master of the Absolute Saber Sect, I must seek justice for him."